Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. I hope you're enjoying the beginning of spring with all the trees shooting their new leaves, and I hope that you're getting out there and enjoying a bit of sunshine, and that your weather is improving wherever you are in the world. And don't forget to go and get that perfect drink, because wherever you are, you deserve to spoil yourself. So before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, as a mother working for my own interior design company, I was always exceedingly busy, frantically on the go, meeting the demands of high-profile customers. Life was never easy, but then when is life ever plain sailing? For most of us, we have to rise above the inevitable hiccups that greet us along the way in the journey of life. Let's just say that pleasing some of Philly's most exacting, affluent customers was not a job for the faint-hearted. It required serious grit, nerves of steel, while conquering the telltale signs of a quivering upper lip, as mine has a tendency to betray my disapproval when I'm trying to appear solicitously cooperative, with a benevolent, complacent expression on my face, when secretly I just want to pull out my hair and scream. It would be the little things that would frustrate me the most, the irrational, nonsensical, far-fetched and unreasonable requests of clients, wanting their glass cabinet doors for their kitchens to be filled with exotic fish swimming around in the glass. I mean, are you kidding me? Excuse me, madam, but what the heck are you actually smoking? You think delicate, tropical, colourful sea fish can swim around in your glass cabinets just to look pretty for you, while you cook spaghetti carbonara on your gas hob of your fabulously expensive range oven? I can promise you, people ask for the most bizarre, inefficacious and unavailing things that could never ever work. When I put my foot down and say no, I'm always made to feel that I'm objectionable, and the client may actually pout and almost sulk like a spoilt brat that is not getting her way, and is very aggrieved by the unfairness of my disregard to what they personally consider a riveting suggestion on their parts. I always have to come up with a compromise, a halfway house, a happy medium, so to speak, to soothe away their withered, deflated egos. These are known as my anti-inflammatory suggestions. Well, if you want exotic fish in your kitchen, I will say, why don't we create a pillar of fish by using a very well-designed exotic fish tank? Or we can get pretty designs of fish for you prepared on china plates that can be displayed over your walls, or even embossed and hand-painted on the centre of your wooden cabinetry. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but it was the self-entitled clients, inflated by their own arrogant egos, their sense of superiority, self-importance, and trappings of wealth, that would actually annoy me the most. You always get the impression that they think they know better than anybody else, because they're rich, and that attitude stinks as far as I'm concerned. Their money does not make them better than other people. Fortunate, yes, privileged most certainly, but better, most certainly not. Recently I'd taken on board my team an ambitious female protégé I hoped would finally fill my shoes one day, so that I could be redeemed from some of the hard work, and be able to spend more time with my family. She had told me that she'd love my job one day, so I hired her at once, as I was looking for people with drive in my business. My young 8-year-old daughter Georgina was currently being taken care of by our live-in Swedish au pair, if that's what you call her. She picked up my daughter from school every day, gave her lunch, helped her with her homework. Let's just say Ebba was not the greatest babysitter, but at least I knew I could trust her to a degree to take care of Georgina. If she could stop for a wee minute, that is, to draw breath and unglue herself from her mobile phone, that dominated her every move, as if she was a battery-operated robot that couldn't function properly without the remote control. In her case, the remote control was her cell phone. When I was at home, I would hear Ebba's intrusive voice jabbering throughout the house like an annoying radio, with nonsensical conversations that actually went like this. You decide. Oh, no, I can't make my mind up. You make the decision. OK, we'll go there. Why not? What are you going to wear? No, you can't wear that. Remember, I wanted to wear mine. Yes, but last time you wore yours. Don't you remember? That was how trivial her conversations were, arguing about everything and nothing. In my personal and professional life, my cell phone was used for practical, fast conversations and was a means to an end. I used to secretly dream of snatching Ebba's cell phone away from her, throwing it in the trash, as Ebba's entire life revolved around the ridiculous gadget. Although I hasten to say it was advantageous to be able to contact her and know she would answer at once. It seemed piteous to me, but I was determined to keep the peace in our home. So against my own better judgment, I said nothing about the invasiveness of her cell phone. I had come from a residual generation, where cell phones were all becoming a novelty. I knew a time when these gadgets did not conquer or dictate our lives. For me, without the unwanted trespassing interruption of cell phones, life back then had been so much more peaceful. Time was more generous. It wasn't ravenously stolen by the insatiable appetite of modern technology. One day as I was driving through town to visit a client of mine, I get a call from the headmistress of my daughter's school, which certainly rattled my cage. I can see it's her name flashing on caller ID. I know a call from the headmistress is probably not good news. I pull to the side of the road, parking my car. My fingers tremble unsteadily as I answer the call, my thoughts wondering if something bad has happened on the school playground, as Georgina is at school now. All kinds of horrifying thoughts filter through my head. Is she hurt? Did she have a nasty fall? My mind hops like a grasshopper, from one nasty scenario to the next. For as a conscientious mother, you inevitably fear the worst. It's an instinctive maternal reaction to worry about your child. "Hello," I say. "Patricia Fletcher speaking." "Hello, Mrs. Fletcher. This is Belle Schreiner speaking. I would appreciate it if you would consider popping around to the school later when you have a moment at hand. I'd like to have a word with you concerning your daughter." "What is this about? Is my daughter all right?" "Your daughter's absolutely fine, Mrs. Fletcher. It's her recent behaviour that needs addressing. It's causing me grave concern, I have to say." At this horrifying revelation, my heart naturally misses a beat. What's going on with my daughter? What does Mrs. Schreiner mean by Georgina's recent behaviour? What has she done? "I'll be there as soon as possible, Mrs. Schreiner," I say. I immediately cancel my client, tear through town in my black BMW, towards my daughter's school. I have no idea what has happened, but I'm perpetually saddled by a guilty conscience that never ever leaves me. When you're a parent who is consumed and inundated by work, your life is arrested and held hostage to a shameful guilt that cannot be expunged, as it haunts your conscience day after day, pokes you in the ribs, whispers in your ears, "You're a bad mother, a really, really bad mother." I believe my equally as preoccupied husband is afflicted with the same level of regret. Time and time again he has begged me to hand over the reins of my business to a protégé, but reluctantly I've been afraid to do so, afraid of delegating work to someone else that I don't know if I can really trust. I had always known that my absences from my daughter's life would come back to bite me one day. It seems that the moment I've been dreading has inadvertently, uncouthly parked itself in the driveway of my life and has arrived, like a bright red vehicle, with a sign on its side reading, "Bad parent, bad parent, look what you've done, look what you've done." I know I'm guilty as charged, much like any owner who takes on a highly demanding dog, and not having any time for the animal, so through no fault of its own, the untrained, disobedient dog becomes unruly, disruptive, out of control, badly behaved, and seriously lacking in any social skills. I know over the last few years, me and my equally as busy husband have not spent nearly enough time with our daughter Georgina. Granted, we've had weekends with her, seen her in the late afternoon or early evening, but we're both guilty of parental neglect in this regard. We have unwillingly handed over our daughter's childcare responsibilities to a dithering au pair, who has about as much interest in our daughter as a dog has in a garden salad. If my daughter is acting up and behaving atrociously badly, I know that me and my husband are entirely to blame. We're responsible. Me and my husband have guilefully deceived ourselves over and over again that things would invariably change in the future. But time waits for no one, is no respecter of persons, and has steadily marched on so fast like an army of ants. But still, nothing has changed. Me and my husband are ensnared by the same hectic schedule of our lives, tangled up in its thorny briars, its piercing, disobliging demands, so much so that our unfortunate daughter remains on the back seat, overlooked like a beautiful sunset on the peninsula that has been forgotten about, but worthy of our attention that is never ever received. As two ambitious parents, we hardly ever get to see our little girl, so we bow dutifully to her every demand. And let's not kid, this has pliably moulded our girl into an objectionable spoilt brat. Whatever Georgina wants, Georgina gets. I think pandering to Georgina's every whim has made us feel better about ourselves as parents, as it keeps her happy. It soothes our guilt, like a calming chamomile ointment that reduces inflammation, making everything feel so much better. I believe our daughter knows that she manipulates and wheedles her power over our guilt so masterfully to get whatever she wants out of us with an outrageous success. It is the deepest regret of my life not spending more time with our girl, as usually when I return home after a hectic day running around like a frantic March hare, I always crash out next to my husband on the living room couch, as we share a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon together. If we see Georgina at all, it's so briefly. Most of the time we're home, our daughter is fast asleep in the upstairs bedroom. The most we do is tiptoe into her bedroom, kiss her on the cheeks, while we make the same exhausted, fatigued journey back to our own beds, like flagging flowers in the meadow, just aching to drop. But in the morning, our deflated bodies will energetically rise up again, to embrace the yo-yo rhythmic flow of our lives all over again. But sadly, they always exclude Georgina, well, at least an awful lot. So payback is now hovering above me like a buzzard in the air, waiting to pounce on me at any given moment, to cast her talons into my flesh so I feel every inch of the pain my lack of attention has afflicted on my daughter's life. I don't want to deal with this right now. As I reluctantly drive to my daughter's school, I feel as if I'd been plunged under ice-cold water and am being drowned by my guilt. This is all my fault. I know it in my guts. It hasn't escaped my attention. My daughter has become a precocious whippersnapper of late. What's more is it's getting worse and worse and worse, like a leaking tap that has to be addressed before the pipes finally burst, and then there is a plethora of water damage everywhere. Last Sunday, when me and my husband went to have lunch with friends of ours who live very close to us, in the Overbrook neighbourhood, here in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, the charming couple have a boy who's called Simon, about Georgina's age, who by all accounts was playing happily with Georgina, until Simon came charging into the living room in tears, claiming that Georgina had deliberately broken the wings off his model flying aircraft and pulled his hair on purpose. "Mummy, Georgina broke off its wings off my model aircraft. She wanted to have another go, but she's been flying it 6 times already. I told her it was my turn now. And she got so cross with me, she pulled my hair and stuck out her tongue at me. It really hurt, Mummy, it really hurt." "Georgina," my husband's voice had interceded, "is this true? Did you break the wings off Simon's model aircraft? Did you actually pull his hair and stick out your tongue at him? Now I want the truth. I can't abide atrocious behaviour like this, you know that." "He's lying, Daddy. He's making it all up. He was the one who broke off the model aircraft himself. It wasn't me. I never pulled his hair. He's telling lots and lots and lots of porkies just because he wants to get me into trouble, because he just doesn't like me. That's why." "Don't you worry your little head, Simon. I'll buy you a brand new model aircraft. How about that? To replace the one that Georgina broke for you. I'll get you the latest model. I promise." "You promise you'll get me the brand new model?" "I promise, I say, thinking of the quickest, least uncomfortable way to redeem this awkward situation, and to brush over the grim reality of what has just transpired. It was so much better to avoid a problem than to confront it." "That isn't necessary, Julia," Simon's parents both insisted. I mean, kids will be kids. In that moment, I knew Georgina had broken the wings off the plane, and she had pulled Simon's hair. I just knew it in every fibre of my being, and so did both Simon's parents. I could see it in their eyes. They were clandestinely fringing their appalled shock, while their mouths seemed to be sewn together with an invisible thread, for they never uttered a single word, overcome with a desire to remain steadfastly polite. Yet just like everything else concerning the chaos caused by my daughter, I brushed it under the carpet, pretended it wasn't there. I should have made my daughter take responsibility for what she'd done, get her to buy Simon a new aircraft herself, out of her own pocket money, like any responsible parent would have done. I should have laid down boundaries for her, ground rules or punishments for my child. And as for pulling Simon's hair and sticking out her tongue at him, I had no clue about how to reprimand her for that. As I near my daughter's school, I park my shining black BMW under the shade of a large, mature, very majestic oak tree that serenades one side of the school's black wrought iron gates that have been left wide open. It has magnanimously carpeted its glorious golden confetti ubiquitously all over the sidewalk. I plunge my head onto the steering wheel and audibly groan. My jerking gesture causes the hooter to go off spontaneously. What have you done, Georgina, this time? I say through gritted, clenched teeth. I can feel an indignant frustration shooting through me, like fireworks spitting up in the heavens. I'm angry with Georgina, but much more angry with myself. Finally, I take in a deep breath, apply some red lipstick in the visor mirror. I then straighten my electric blue jacket and accompanying slitted skirt that is elegantly pleated in the front. I climb out of my car, releasing my shoes from the gripping entanglement of my safety belt. Even my own car is giving me a hard time this morning, I decide. I totter in a pair of impractical high-heeled shoes that clippity-clop across the tarmac like a horse's hooves. I'm on my way towards the headmistress's office, and I'm feeling nauseously sick to the stomach. I walk across the flagstone of the corridor, through a foyer, towards a white brick building, where rambling red and pink roses tumble over the walls like laughter. The school seems so quiet, as classes are contained behind doors and are actively in progress this morning. There's not a sound in sight. Another oak tree with gnarled roots that juts out of the ground hovers over one side of the headmistress's office, while pretty speckled beams of sunlight dance gaily over the verdant turf. I walk over this grass, my high heels gripped by its soft sponginess. I amble unenthusiastically over to the head's office, rather like a lamb to the slaughter, with withering ears that long to be deaf to the ramblings of a headmistress. Mrs. Schreiner's office is accessed by a small flight of stairs that lead up to a wraparound porch and finally to a glossy pale blue door, with a golden plaque pinned on the front reading Bell Schreiner's office. I knock on the door cautiously. Mrs. Schreiner opens the door and beckons me in. I gather at one time she ran a very strict girls' private school in England, until she emigrated here to America. She is, I hasten to say, one of the most intimidating women I have ever had the pleasure to meet. The kind of woman that can equally make the parents feel as if they're in serious need of reprimanding themselves. In my mind's eye, I can visualize her telling me to bend over while she wraps my derriere with a leather belt for being a very naughty little girl. "Hello, my dear," she says to me in her posh English accent. "Thank you so much for coming. Please take a seat, won't you?" Nervously I oblige her request and sit in the chair directly opposite her, on the wide-panelled, gleaming oakwood desk, where everything has its precise placement. Mrs. Bell Schreiner walks with such a straight, graceful deportment, is always wearing tweed pencil skirts that skim above her ankles, smart jackets, elegant blouses, and pearls. I think she's in her late 60s, although she looks significantly younger. Her flawless English complexion has kindly remained unlined in her advancing years, without the aid of Botox or fillers. I know this as she can easily furrow her forehead and doesn't have the mask-like look you can get from overdoing the Botox. I see this look among many of my rich clients who leave no area of their skin uninjected, and let's just say, with Botox, less is definitely more. Many would kill to have a skin like Mrs. Schreiner's, but I imagine she has not exploited her skin to the sun. The silken curtains of her thick dark hair are pulled away from her face, in a formidable beehive-like bun. Her silvery grey eyes look directly into mine. I want to escape her direct gaze and look away, but I can't. It's like she's held my gaze. "Mrs. Fletcher," she tells me, "I'm not going to beat around the bush. I mean, why would I do that to you? But your little girl, Georgina, has become an obnoxious little brat, and a real bully of late." I sit there squeezing and compressing my fingers together tightly so that they actually click. What do I say to this? How do I defend my daughter's behaviour? That would be an instinctive, natural reaction for a mother to do, would it not? But the headmistress is making me face the sober truth, like an owner dragging its dog over to its vomit, rubbing its nose in the gruesome offence. I don't know what to say, Mrs. Schreiner. What happened? What exactly did Georgina do?" "Mrs. Fletcher, I do wish I could tell you what you want to hear, but I have to be straight and to the point with you. I have a very strict approach, and I believe in establishing boundaries in our children while they're very young. Your daughter is like an untamed wild child that does the hell what she likes and has no accountability for any of her actions. I'm grossly appalled by the sense of entitlement that she has adopted, as if in some way even the teachers here should be bowing down to her, as if she's a princess." "I agree," I almost whimper. "I have noticed her becoming noxiously insufferable recently. You ask me, Mrs. Fletcher, what your daughter has done. I would actually change that question radically to say, what has she not actually done? Your daughter has got herself caught up into open scraps in the playground with other girls, and from what I've heard, she's instigated all these fights herself. Let's just say she's been mean, very spiteful, and incredibly unkind." I cup my hands over my mouth. I gasp. "You're joking? You mean she's physically actually hurting people?" "Not just that, Mrs. Fletcher. Your daughter is afflicted with a very big case of the green-eyed monster, the likes of such I have never seen before in my school. The other day in class, little Marjorie Cunningham had painted a picture in art that was highly praised by the teacher, who showed it off to the rest of the class. Your daughter was seen scribbling over the painting with black crayon. She was furiously jealous about the compliments that Marjorie received from the teacher. Now, Mrs. Fletcher, I do hold you accountable, you and your husband, for your daughter's insubordinate behaviour. You see, over the years as a headmistress, I have discovered it is bad parenting that enables kids like Georgina to act out so abysmally, which means later on in life she's going to grow up to become quite a little madam. Mrs. Schreiner, I take offence to you laying the blame at my door like this," I say, stumbling on my words. "Mrs. Fletcher, as a headmistress, I have your daughter's best interests at heart. I have no intention of insulting or offending you. But if you want Georgina to change her behaviour, you have to change your parenting skills. Even you must surely see that she's out of control. I mean, scribbling over a kid's artwork is reprehensible behaviour that I simply cannot abide in my school. I have taken the liberty and the initiative of talking to your daughter about her family life. I have observed she's ravenously hungry for attention and will stop at nothing to get it. I do understand, Mrs. Fletcher. Believe me, I do. I'm on your side. I dare say you're not the first and won't be the last working parent that is faced with the challenges of raising a very difficult, demanding child. It's so much easier to give in to a difficult child and throw money at the problem in the hope that it'll all go away. But you do realise that that is not the solution to this problem. Is there any way in your high-pressure job you can free up some special time to spend with your child? I feel this is terribly important. You won't know what your child's issues actually are without seeing them firsthand, and thereby laying down the appropriate boundaries for her, enforcing discipline in a gentle, instructive, kind way that serves your daughter's very best interests. Actually, I'm trying to do that, but it's not easy. I've got a young woman, a protégée, I recently recruited in my business, who I believe will eventually fill my shoes, so I have more time on my hands to devote to raising my daughter. Well, in the meantime, I have the perfect solution for you, Miss Fletcher. A very good friend of mine has 8 children in her family, all homeschooled, living on a farm, where they have learnt to share everything. The children are remarkably well behaved. I feel the influences of Georgina living with a family like that for 8 weeks will serve her best interests. The 2 young siblings, Donovan and Sally, are round about her age. It's a little like putting an unruly dog among a team of very well-behaved dogs. You'll be surprised how the other dogs recognise the antisocial behaviour and nip it in the bud. They put the dog firmly in its place. The new dog soon changes and learns to adjust. I believe the children in this family, along with the parents, will help to change your daughter, transform her into a better version of herself. She will learn by their example. At first it will be uncomfortable for your daughter, like a piece of marble being chipped and chipped at until it becomes a fine piece of sculpture. The road might be bumpy and precarious for her, but she will be changed so positively. It'll be a move that you cannot regret. It sounds like a great idea, I say, relief flooding over me. Do you think it'll actually work on my daughter? Mrs. Schreiner reaches out to squeeze my arm kindly. I realise in that moment she really did have my best interests at heart. I think we should have a jolly good shot at it, don't you? I've spoken to the family, and they're more than delighted to invite your daughter to stay with them for the next 8 weeks. Are you on board with this decision? Absolutely. Where do they live? They live in Jasper. It's 50 miles from Atlanta, located in Pickens County, at the northern end of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Let's just say your daughter will be staying in a very prepossessing environment, with lots of fresh air, beautiful countryside, where she can run around with the other children. Let's just say Jasper boasts incredible features. Alberta's tallest mountain, for example. Malign Lake, which is the 2nd largest glacier lake in the entire world. The wildlife there is so diverse. You name it, they've got it. From grizzlies to black bears, mountain goats, wolverines, elk, bighorn sheep. Can I come along too, I tease? It sounds absolutely wonderful. How far is it from Pittsburgh, Philly? I ask. 12 hours by car, about an hour and 45 minutes in the plane. It hadn't been difficult to persuade my husband to allow Georgina to be whisked off to Jasper to stay with a family that could help subdue the very contrary side of her character. I was the privileged one that escorted my daughter by plane to the McDougall's farmhouse, and what a house it was too. A stunning white symmetrical building, with a grey slate roof, large French windows, overlooking prepossessing views of the countryside. Let's just say its wholesome simplicity was beguiling, while a long neat asphalt road plundered towards the farmhouse in a long vertical sweep. On the right-hand side of the road was a large triangle of land that was pristinely cultivated in horizontal and vertical squares, all that were aligned with vigorously healthy watermelon crops. Then fringing the whole farm every side were trees, and still more trees, clustered together in ubiquitous congenial groups, namely sweet gum, eastern red cedars, and red budwood trees, all very similar in size, stature, and its viridescent leafy bounty. Let's just say the bright twinkling greenness of the countryside was very alluring under the canopy of a cobalt blue sky. There were no early signs of autumn here. It didn't appear to have seized this part of the country yet. I told the taxi driver to wait for me, while I gathered my daughter's suitcase from the trunk, and proceeded to march her to the front door. I was actually looking clandestinely forward to being released of the burden of my daughter for 8 long weeks. She had become so difficult of late. I felt almost guilty to be lumbering her off to some perfect strangers who were going to have to deal with her tantrums. Now remember, Georgina, I want you to behave yourself. I need you to be a very good girl and to be on your best behaviour. Do you understand? These very kind people are taking care of you for the next 8 weeks. I do need you to be a good girl. Do you understand what Mummy is trying to tell you? My daughter wilfully ignores me. She throws a tantrum, accompanied by a hissy fit, kicking her white-stockinged feet on the ground indignantly. I don't want to come here. I want to go home now. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be with strange people. Take me home now, Mummy. I want you to take me home. I don't want to be here. Don't speak to me in that tone, Georgina. You're staying here because your headmistress believes you need to learn to mind your manners. You're going to learn about good behaviour here, how to conduct yourself like a young lady. But I don't want to be here, Mummy. I want to go home now. So that's the end of part 1. It gets very exciting because we're going to see where Georgina is going to lead us, and it's on a very, very exciting journey. So don't forget to listen to part 2 of the story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.